You know what it feels like to be invisible in your own family? To watch everyone celebrate the golden child while you're standing right there, breathing the same air, sharing the same blood, but somehow you're just nothing to them? Let me tell you about the night everything changed. The night I stopped being the family doormat and became the person they should have feared all along. My name is Janelle, and I've spent 28 years being the forgotten daughter, the one who wasn't pretty enough, wasn't charming enough, wasn't enough, period. My sister? Oh, she was everything, everything I apparently failed to be. She had the looks, the personality, the effortless way of making our parents smile. And me? I was just there. Background noise in the symphony of their perfect family. This story begins at our annual family dinner. You know the type, the kind where everyone pretends to be close, pretends to care, pretends we're this loving, tight-knit unit. My parents hosted it at their mansion, the one they built with the company my grandfather started, the company that was supposed to be for all of us. The company I poured my soul into, while my sister was out shopping and posting photos on social media. I walked into that dining room and immediately felt it. That thick, suffocating energy that told me something was wrong. People were whispering. Cousins who normally ignored me were giving me these pitying looks. Aunts and uncles were exchanging glances like they knew something I didn't. My stomach churned, but I held my head high. I'd learned long ago not to show weakness around these vultures. The dinner started normally enough. Fake pleasantries, forced laughter. My mother asking my sister about her latest vacation, while barely acknowledging that I existed. My father talking business with my uncles, never once mentioning the proposals I'd submitted, the deals I'd closed, the nights I'd spent fixing the messes everyone else created. Then it happened. My sister stood up, glass in hand, that sickeningly sweet smile plastered on her face. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her, like she was about to announce the second coming. And in a way, I guess she thought she was. I have an announcement to make, she said, her voice dripping with false humility. Mom and Dad have made a decision about the company's future. She paused for dramatic effect, soaking in the attention like she always did. They've decided to sign the entire company over to me. The papers will be finalized next week. The room erupted. Applause thundered through the dining room. Cheers. Congratulations. Everyone rushing to hug her, to celebrate her, to worship at the altar of the favorite child. My sister stood there beaming, accepting their praise like it was her birthright, and then she looked at me. Looked directly at me, with those cold, calculated eyes and said, "Sorry, sis. Nothing will come your way. But I'm sure you understand. This is for someone who can actually handle the responsibility." More applause, more laughter, like she'd just delivered the punchline to the world's funniest joke. And the joke was me. It had always been me. I should have been devastated. I should have cried, should have screamed, should have fallen apart right there. That's what they expected. That's what they wanted. Poor, pathetic Janelle. Always losing, always coming in second, always being reminded of her place. But instead, I laughed. Not a bitter laugh, not a sad laugh, a genuine, amused laugh that made the room go quiet, because I knew something they didn't, something that was about to turn their celebration into a funeral. I stood up slowly, calmly, and looked directly at my mother. My father's face had gone pale. He knew. Oh, he definitely knew what was coming. But my mother, in her arrogance, in her absolute certainty that she held all the power, just stared back at me, with confusion and annoyance. "That's wonderful news," I said, my voice steady and clear. "Congratulations, sister dear." I raised my glass in a mock toast. Then I turned to my mother, and I let the smile drop from my face. "You have exactly 3 minutes left. Or everything you've built, everything you've lied about, everything you've hidden, goes public." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. My mother's face flickered between confusion and something else, something that looked almost like fear. "What are you talking about?" my sister demanded, her moment of glory suddenly interrupted. "What is she talking about, Mom?" "Nothing," my mother said quickly. Too quickly. "Your sister is just being dramatic. Please, everyone, let's continue celebrating." 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I said, checking my watch. "I'd start talking if I were you, Mother. Or should I do it for you?" My father stood up, his hands shaking. "Janelle, please. Not here. Not now. We can discuss this privately." Privately, the anger that I'd been holding back for years, for decades, came flooding out. You want to discuss this privately? Like how you privately embezzled money from grandfather's company? Like how you privately cooked the books to hide your gambling debts? Like how you privately took out loans in the company's name to fund your lifestyle while telling everyone the business was thriving? Gasps echoed through the room. My relatives, who had been so quick to applaud my sister, now looked at my parents with shock and horror. That's a lie, my mother shrieked, but her voice cracked. She's lying. She's just jealous and bitter, and— 2 minutes, I said calmly. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. A thick folder filled with documents, bank statements, emails, receipts, evidence I'd been gathering for months after I discovered what they'd been doing. Should I start reading these aloud, or would you prefer to tell everyone the truth yourself? My sister's face had gone from triumphant to terrified. Mom? Dad? What is she talking about? What documents? The documents that show our parents have been running the company into the ground for the past 5 years, I said, my voice rising with each word. The documents that show they've been stealing from their own business to maintain their lavish lifestyle. The documents that prove the company they're so generously signing over to you, dear sister, is drowning in debt. Debt that you'll be personally responsible for the moment you sign those papers. I threw the folder onto the table. Papers scattered everywhere. Bank statements showing withdrawals of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Emails between my father and loan sharks. Receipts for luxury cars, jewelry, vacations. All purchased while employees weren't getting paid on time. All purchased while I was working 60-hour weeks trying to keep the company afloat, wondering why we never seemed to get ahead. My uncle grabbed one of the papers, his face going white as he read it. This shows a debt of $3 million. How is that possible? The company was valued at $10 million, just 5 years ago. Because they spent it, I said, and I couldn't keep the pain out of my voice anymore. The anger was mixing with hurt, with betrayal, with the agony of realizing your own parents saw you as nothing more than a workhorse to cover their crimes. They spent it all, and then some. And they've been using the money I brought in, the deals I closed, the contracts I negotiated, to pay the interest on their debts. I was never going to inherit the company, because there's nothing left to inherit. And neither were you, sister. They were going to sign it over to you, and let you take the fall, when everything collapsed. My sister turned to our mother, tears streaming down her face. Is this true? Were you going to let me sign for a bankrupt company? Were you going to ruin my life? My mother couldn't answer. She just stood there, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. My father had his head in his hands. 1 minute, I said. Unless you want me to send all of this to the media, to your business partners, to everyone who still thinks you're respectable pillars of the community, you're going to start telling the truth. Right now. We didn't have a choice, my father finally shouted, and there was desperation in his voice. The gambling debts. They were threatening us. We had to pay them somehow. We thought we could fix it. Thought we could make the money back before anyone noticed. But you couldn't. I finished for him. Because you're not business people. You never were. Grandfather built that company from nothing. And you've destroyed his legacy in less than a decade. And you were going to let your own daughter take the blame for your failures. The room was in chaos now. My aunts were crying. My uncles were shouting questions at my parents. My cousins were on their phones, probably already spreading the news. My sister had collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Her moment of triumph turned into a nightmare. And me? I felt hollow. Vindicated. Yes. Proven right. Absolutely. But hollow. Because this was my family. These were the people who were supposed to love me, supposed to protect me, supposed to see me as more than a tool to use, and a scapegoat to blame. Why? I asked, and my voice broke. Why did you hate me so much? What did I ever do to deserve being treated like nothing? My mother looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I thought I might see remorse, regret. Some sign that underneath all the lies and manipulation, there was a mother who loved her daughter. But all she said was, "You were always so serious, so critical. You reminded us of all our failures. Your sister, she made us feel good about ourselves." And that's when I realized the truth. They didn't hate me because I'd done something wrong. They hated me because I'd done everything right. Because I was a mirror reflecting back all the ways they'd fallen short. because loving me meant acknowledging their own inadequacies, and it was easier to pretend I didn't matter than to face themselves. I picked up my bag and my phone. "Time's up," I said. "Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to go to your lawyer, and you're going to sign the company over to me. Not to my sister, to me. And then you're going to step down from all positions, and let me try to salvage what's left of grandfather's legacy. Or I send everything I have to the authorities, and you both go to prison for fraud and embezzlement." "You can't do this," my mother whispered. "We're your parents." "You stopped being my parents the moment you decided I was worthless," I said. "Now you're just two people who made very bad choices, and are about to face the consequences." I turned to my sister. Despite everything, despite the years of her looking down on me, I felt sorry for her. She'd been a pawn in their game too, just a different kind. "You were right about one thing," I told her. "This company is for someone who can handle the responsibility, and that someone was never going to be you. Not because you're not capable, but because they never planned to give you a real chance. They were setting you up to fail." Number. She just stared at me, mascara running down her face, her perfect image destroyed along with everything else. I walked toward the door, and the crowd of relatives parted for me, like I was Moses, and they were the Red Sea. At the doorway, I turned back one last time. "Grandfather built that company for his family," I said. "He wanted it to take care of all of us, to be something we could be proud of. You turned it into a piggy bank and nearly destroyed it. But I'm going to fix it. I'm going to rebuild what you almost destroyed, not for you, for him, and for myself, to prove that I was always enough, even when you refused to see it." The next morning, they signed the papers. They didn't have a choice. It was either sign over the company to me, or face criminal charges. I spent the next 6 months working 20-hour days, restructuring debt, cutting costs, making hard decisions. I had to let people go. I had to sell off assets. I had to humble myself and negotiate with creditors who had every right to destroy us. But I saved it. Against all odds, I saved grandfather's company. It's smaller now, leaner, but it's profitable. It's honest. It's something I can be proud of. My parents? They moved to a smaller house, had to sell the mansion, the cars, all the trappings of wealth they'd grown addicted to. They don't speak to me. I'm the villain in their story, the ungrateful daughter who destroyed their lives. They've told anyone who'll listen that I stole the company from them, that I fabricated evidence, that I'm a monster. Let them talk. I sleep well at night knowing I saved jobs, saved my grandfather's legacy, and saved my own dignity. My sister and I have an odd relationship now. We're not close, probably never will be, but there's a mutual understanding. She sees now what I always knew, that our parents' love was conditional, transactional, and ultimately worthless. She's building her own life now, separate from the family drama. I respect that. The extended family? Some of them think I went too far. Some think I didn't go far enough. Most of them just keep their distance, uncomfortable with the truth I forced everyone to face. That's fine. I learned that night that I don't need their approval. I never did. But here's what I want you to understand, whoever you are watching this. If you're the overlooked sibling, the forgotten child, the one who's always working twice as hard for half the recognition you're worth, is not determined by people too broken to see your value. Their blindness is not your failure. Their inability to appreciate you is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of theirs. And if you're in a situation where you know the truth, and everyone else is celebrating a lie, speak up. I know it's terrifying. I know it might cost you relationships, might make you the villain, might turn your world upside down. But silence costs more. Silence costs your self-respect. Silence costs your integrity. Silence costs pieces of your soul, until one day, you wake up and don't recognize yourself anymore. I was silent for 28 years. I swallowed every insult, every slight, every moment of being overlooked. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was being the bigger person, that eventually they'd see my worth. But they never did. They never would have. Because people who benefit from your silence will never reward you for it. That dinner was the most painful night of my life. But it was also the night I finally stood up for myself, the night I stopped waiting for permission to take up space. The night I stopped apologizing for being competent, capable, and worthy of respect. Do I wish things had been different? Every single day. I wish I'd had parents who celebrated both their daughters. I wish I'd had a sister who was an ally instead of a competitor. I wish I'd grown up in a home where love wasn't a zero-sum game where someone had to lose for someone else to win. But I can't change the past. None of us can. All we can do is decide who we're going to be moving forward. And I decided I'm going to be someone who tells the truth, even when it's hard. Someone who stands up for herself, even when it costs her. Someone who builds something real instead of maintaining a beautiful facade. The company is thriving now. I hired based on merit, not family connections. I built a culture of honesty and accountability. I make sure every employee knows they're valued, that their work matters, that they're seen, because I know what it's like to be invisible, and I never want anyone who works for me to feel that way. And you know what's funny? The success I'm having now, the real, sustainable success, built on actual business principles instead of lies and borrowed money, it's everything my parents pretended to have. They could have had this. If they'd been honest, if they'd worked hard, if they'd valued substance over appearance, they could have built something real. But they chose the easy path. They chose shortcuts, and lies, and exploitation. And in the end, those choices destroyed them. I chose the hard path. I chose truth and work and integrity. And while it nearly broke me, it also made me stronger than I ever thought possible. So here's my question for you, and I really want you to think about this. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you have exposed the truth in front of everyone, knowing it would destroy your family's reputation? Would you have confronted your parents privately? Or would you have stayed silent and let your sister walk into a trap? There's no right answer, but I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely want to understand how other people would handle this situation. And if you've experienced something similar, if you've been the overlooked child, or the family scapegoat, if you've had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself, share your story. You're not alone. There are so many of us walking around with these wounds, thinking we're the only ones, thinking there's something wrong with us because our families couldn't love us the way we deserved. There's nothing wrong with you. There was never anything wrong with you. The people who should have protected you failed. The people who should have seen you were blind. The people who should have celebrated you were threatened by your light. But their failure is not your identity. Their blindness is not your reality. Their fear is not your limitation. You are enough. You have always been enough. And one day, you're going to stop waiting for them to see it and you're going to start living like you know it. And that's when everything changes. That dinner was 2 years ago. 2 years of rebuilding, of healing, of learning to stand in my truth without apology. It hasn't been easy. Some days, I still feel that little girl inside me, desperately wanting her parents' approval. Some days I still question if I did the right thing. But then I look at what I've built. I look at the employees who depend on me. I look at my grandfather's legacy, restored and thriving. I look at myself in the mirror, and I see someone strong, someone brave, someone worthy, and I know I made the right choice. The truth will always cost you something, but lies cost you everything. Remember that. When you're standing at that crossroads, when you're deciding whether to speak up or stay silent, remember that your voice matters, your truth matters, you matter. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not your family, not your friends, not society. You are worthy of respect, of love, of recognition. And if the people around you can't see that, it's time to find new people. Or it's time to stand alone until you find your tribe. I stood alone that night at the dinner table. Alone against my entire family. But I wasn't really alone. I had the truth. I had integrity. I had self-respect. And those things, those invisible things that can't be bought or sold or stolen, those are what carried me through. They'll carry you through too. Whatever you're facing, whatever truth you're holding, whatever stand you need to take, you're stronger than you think. You're braver than you know. And you deserve better than silence and invisibility. So, speak up. Stand up. Take up space. Tell your truth. And let the chips fall where they may. Because living authentically, even when it's painful, is infinitely better than slowly dying inside, while everyone celebrates a lie. That's my story. That's my truth. That's the night I stopped being invisible and started being unstoppable. And if you take nothing else from this, take this. You have the power to change your narrative. You always have. You're just one decision away from a completely different life. Make the decision. Take the leap. Stand in your truth. And if you found this story helpful, if it resonated with you, if it gave you the courage to make your own stand, then hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I share more stories about finding strength in painful situations, about standing up for yourself, and about rebuilding your life when everything falls apart. You're not alone in this journey, and I want to walk it with you. Subscribe now, so you don't miss the next story.